Well, welcome to episode 12 of the Odd Shaped Balls podcast. It's a bit strange, this. I'm doing the hosting duties. It's been Andy since episode 1, hasn't he? But he's decided to have a week off. He's away with the fam. No idea where. That shows you how much we've been paying attention over this past week. He'll be back next week, but you are joined on the Odd Shaped Balls podcast. Great start, messing up already. By the dynamic trio instead of myself, Jordan Weir. Joined by then two of South Cumbria's finest, Dan Payne and Becca Thompson. Evening, guys and girls.
Good evening. Good evening.
All right.
We had a good week.
Yeah. If
I was on telly.
What?
I was on telly.
I see.
Go on, you start, Becca.
Go on, you start. Yeah, see
No,
this.
it's actually rugby league related, kind of, right? Because I went to see The Last Leg by Adam Hills. You know
The Channel 4 show, yeah.
Yeah, the chat. But he plays for Warrington. I don't know. Is it PDRL?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Team. He plays for Warrington's PDRL team. So I was in the live audience and I was on telly with my mum, clapping him. And then I spoke to Adam Hills and told him about rugby and said, "Oh yeah, I'm a commentator." And he was like, "Wow, I love it."
You're not still peddling that line that you're a commentator, are you?
Yes, I was on telly. And he's the RFL president as well now, so...
He is, yeah. He's took over from... it was Lindsay Hoyle, wasn't he? Speaker. So yeah, he's took over.
He could come on the podcast now he's met me.
Well,
Did you plug it? Did you plug the podcast?
Yeah, I've met him a few times as well now, so I'm in there now.
Well, did you plug Odd Shaped Balls?
Yeah.
No,
you never. Look at that.
No, you didn't. Don't lie.
It was only a 30-second break.
I'd have been hanging around that stage door until he come out and go, "Hey, Adam, do us a quick video. You know, imagine how many views would we have? Come on,
no,
Becca.
You weren't allowed your phones. It was dead strict because it's all copyright. So you literally weren't allowed your phone on, like even near the building. They kept coming around like, "Turn your phones off, turn your phones off." Like you literally, if you was caught with your phone, they just chucked you away. It was dead strict.
It'd have been all right afterwards.
I wanted to take a picture afterwards. They were like, "No."
Oh. Penny, your week?
It's been all right, mate. Yeah, I did realise after I spoke to Paul yesterday that I need to start getting that new notebook out and start making some notes ready for this new season. He's going through all these new players, and I'm like, "Which one's that? Which one's that again?" I'm like, "Yeah." I need to start noting these down and getting back in the game a little bit. It's that pre-season break. It just runs everything off course, doesn't it? So get back in the zone now.
All you've got to do is look at our squad from last year, and when you've signed half of it. So
yeah.
That was like me a couple of weeks ago. I went down when I spoke to Anthony Murray, and I look, and they're all coming out, and I'm like, I don't know who any of you are. So the first few commentaries could be rather interesting, I think, for us all. Well, you two had a better week than what I did, especially a better Friday by sounds of it, Becca. You definitely had a better Friday than what I did. I was meant to be on football duty this weekend, wasn't I? And I got...
Thursday night?
Yeah, well, yeah, all right, fair. It was the wrong shape ball. But I was meant to be on football duty, wasn't I? And I got, Storm Dara come in. I got halfway down the M6. Well, I'd say more than M6. I was probably 100 miles away. Birmingham to South Wales. It's about right, isn't it? Got the call at Birmingham. Where you are? I was like, Birmingham. You better turn around, son. So that was a nice 8 hours in the car on Friday afternoon driving. To be fair, the weather wasn't too bad until I got back just past Lancaster, so essentially Cumbria, and then it hossed it down all the way home. I had no rain or anything on the way down, and then as soon as you hit Cumbria on the way back, it absolutely lashed it down. So I had a pretty boring weekend because obviously I had no plans because I expected to be in South Wales rather than West Cumbria, but I made it back, and so I've had a pretty chilled weekend. Somehow managed to get a cold, so I've struggled today, last couple of days, but it is what it is this time of year. But let's get into it. Dan, you work for them, so say something nice about the sponsor. Go.
Oh, yeah, good evening, and a big well done, big thank you to our sponsors at Santa Marina. Big well done for serving us some pizzas, guys. Santa Marina Deli as well, and I've got to plug them. They've asked me this week that they are bringing in back by popular demand, the Christmas Spectacular sandwich through Monday through till Saturday with some cannoli and brownie things. I should have written this down. Some sort of Italian dessert they're bringing in as well. The evenings are all the same. The evenings have got the best pizza chef in the whole of Cumbria, possibly, arguably, the whole of the UK. So if you're going to get the best pizza ever, make sure you go to Santa Marina in the evenings. Say hello to me. Jobs are good at Santa Marina.
It obviously can't be you then. It must be the fella that's working tonight with you not being in. So,
Yeah.
But, thanks as always to Santa Marina for their continued sponsorship. If anyone out west wants to give us a sponsorship as well, give us, we give plenty of plugs. So as Dan will tell you, make sure you reach out. Before we head into this week's news, we're going to have a bit of a recap of last week's 13s. It caused a bit of debate across our socials, didn't it? The Cumbrian 13s. A couple of people initially missing the point. I think, well, how can you miss such and such out? Now, did you miss such and such out? I think realising that most of us are all under 40. Some of us a lot more than under 40. Looking at you and me there, Becca. Obviously, Penny, don't give me that look. Obviously, the likes of, there's a few my way. How did you miss out Boxer Walker? Well, I mean, the nicest way possible. I wasn't there when Boxer was playing. So, although looking at it, I'm quite surprised he missed out on the town team now that I think about it. But, we got that from the Workington Town Forum. So, thanks for them for sticking for contributing. And we're going to park it this week and then revisit it next week, aren't we? Because we're going to then make our ultimate, and this is our ultimate. I'm going to ours for those we have seen. So anything sort of pre-1990, anything pre-Super League, you sort of knackered with. For completely honest, guys. I'm sorry.
And if you've not made it, it's because you're crap.
Oh. Even in Mike? I'm not.
So
I'm only joking, but we did have a lot of comments, and it was quite funny seeing a lot of people comment like a list of 13 Australians, and we were like, you've totally missed the point of this. But no, obviously, I just want to say as well, because I think me and Dan and Andy had quite similar teams. I've obviously only watched since 2009 for Barrow, so I had quite a limited little span of people to pick from. But and that's not because we've not had good people; it's because we've had a lot of good Cumbrians in the same positions, but we've had a lot of people coming from Australia and stuff like that in different positions. But yeah, obviously it's hard to pick, and there's a lot of people that are going to miss out because, yeah, like I say, people who were in them good positions smashed it. So, yeah, it was really tough to pick. But I mean, if people didn't get in there, as Jordan says, it's kind of like our top 13. So it's all down to opinions, really, rather than, we haven't looked at stats or we haven't looked at figures. We've just gone from what we remember. And to be honest, I mean, I'm a rugby player myself, so I can't really remember what happened last year. So I just tried.
I had one Whitehaven fan, Peter Tyson. Peter, thank you very much for listening. Who messaged me and said, and I hummed and hard about putting this player in, about Craig Walsh, but he was just sort of at the back end of my era of where, sort of with that, I started watching sort of 2003, and I think he only maybe had another season or two at Whitehaven before he left. So, I mean, Craig was a fantastic player, but he played his best rugby just probably before I started watching. So, I mean, he was on the fringes and probably could have gone in at 13 ahead of Tom Walker. I said I was struggling for the 13, and it was between Tom and Craig Walsh. So yeah, there was players that probably should have been in there or would have been in there if I'd started watching maybe a year or two earlier that has missed out. But it all leads up for a fantastic talking point next week when Andy's back off his hollybobs and we can pick an ultimate Cumbrian 13. There's not going to be an awful lot of town players in there, unfortunately, because it's who we've seen. So we'll apologise to the Workington contingent now for that next week. But yeah, when Andy's back next week, we'll have a look and do our ultimate Cumbrian 13. No doubt, once again, it will cause some debate across the socials. So, moving on to this week's news. A few friendlies have been announced. Barrow versus Whitehaven. Whitehaven's making the annual trip down to South Cumbria once again, although it's been a few years since we've met in pre-season. 2019, I think the last one was, where Barrow done the Dunhaven on that afternoon. So, early start, 5th of January. It's bound to be a cold one at Craven Park, Dan.
Yeah, it sure is, mate. It's always bloody cold at Cumbria, isn't it? I can't remember a decent sunny day, but yeah, I know what you mean. I'm looking forward to this little mini Cumbrian tri-series. It was something that you can pick up with shortly when we spoke to Paul, and Paul mentioned this as well. And he's intrigued to see how both squads go against him because a lot of these lads he has worked with, trained with, many of which have come from the Furnace Academy at some point as well. Many of which he believes still want to play in a Barrows shirt a few years down the line, and he talks about that. So he's intrigued to see how they get on taking the step up. Because it is a big step up for a lot of these players, and it doesn't matter how good you are at the NCL level. When you move it's one thing moving up to League One and hitting a semi-professional circuit. When you play against a championship team, that's another big level. You're coming up against a lot of international players, ex-Super League players, and I think personally, I think they're going to be feisty. I think these derbies always are, and I think as a lot of these amateurs progress mentally as well into the professional game, I think they might almost. I'm not going to say act like amateurs, but I think they're going to be well up for it in the first 20 minutes. And I think eventually fitness will take over. Um, just tactics in general will take over. And I think Barrow will show why they are the championship team. That's not me waving the Barrow flag as a fan. I'm just saying I think that's the reality of it. And I think it'll be a massive learning curve for a lot of the Workington and Whitehaven players in a good way. Because you learn from your losses, don't you, effectively? So and I think these is going to be one of the good ways for them to learn.
Similar to what I think Anthony Murray said, sort of the 1895 Cup and the Challenge Cup was for his side last year, didn't he? He said that they were going up against championship sides week in, week out, very early into the season, and it sort of had its pros and cons. In terms of, we're going up against these sides, we're going to get, some good money through the gate as they did when Barrow and Whitehaven both come to town in the 1895. It's going to be a learning curve. Becca, obviously, you're the only one that's really sort of played to any sort of standard out of the three of us. For yourself, if you come up against a side against a higher division, a higher opposition, is it nerves? Is it let's see what we can do?
To be honest, I agree with Dan. It's fitness. It is ultimately fitness. And that's what we've seen a lot as well, me and Dan, from watching the women go up to Super League, because you see it against them, like top divisions. I've played against Warrington, and the first game we played against them, we beat them. And that was their first game of the season. And it was our first game of the season, and we beat them. And we had what we needed against them. We had the skill level, but when we got to the end of the season in the grand final, I think they beat us about 80-0 or 80-6. It was like, how have you gone from, a few months to winning a game to getting battered? But it's not, I think, as well recruitment. Like Dan says, you come up against like players of a higher standard. So, and in reality, in them sort of leagues, having one good player can really affect the game. So I think I don't really want to use an example of someone, but T, when he played for Barrow, was just an outstanding player for Barrow, and realistically solo for Barrow, he did a lot of work for them. It's when you move into them different levels that like you can really struggle, and the competition becomes very similar. So there wouldn't have been a T Ritson maybe in League One at that point, but when people play against him in Championship, it was ridiculously hard to stop him. I mean, even when he played against Huddersfield, he was scoring tries against them. So it just shows that then a player can just be down on a player. But yeah, I would say, well, I wouldn't say it's nerves, because I would say every time I played a team higher than myself, I've been up for it, definitely. And we've always in that mindset that you can win. I've always been taught you've got to be in the mindset that you can win, but you've got to be realistic as well. You've got to kind of look at what they've got and what they've done. So yeah, it's a hard one, but I agree with Dan. But it'll be really interesting to see what Whitehaven do this year. I am really interested because I know a lot of the lads. I worked a lot with them at Furnace Raiders, and I could see the potential in every single one of them. It'll just be that jump up to NCL, and there's lads like Keir McPherson. He's a good friend of mine, and he's I think he's an outstanding player. Obviously, unfortunately, had an injury last year, but I think he'll be mega for you guys, and this could really be his sort of breakthrough at Whitehaven. And maybe he does want to go to a team like Barrow. You don't know what's going on in the lads' heads, what they want to do from this. But yeah, there's some like mega players in that side, and you have ultimately created a really strong squad from the local teams. But is it going to be enough in that level? Definitely League One. I think it will be challenging, but as Dan says, going up against the Championship side, is it going to show? Again, you don't know. You might have some of them lads who want to prove something to Cresta and go out and absolutely smash it. Even that can come into it. But kind of, oh, you didn't pick me, so here I am, and here's what I'm going to do. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's going to be. You never know until you watch it, do you? That ultimately that is the. That's the telling point, but it'll be good. I'm excited for it. I actually can't wait to see Whitehaven this year because I know most of the team.
Fair play. So that's the start of pre-season. Towards the end of it, Whitehaven and Workington have announced the annual Ike Southwood Memorial fixture with a really moving sort of video. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but with the Whitehaven, Lee McCauley, who obviously is sponsored, and we've mentioned a few times, he sponsored a previous episode with ourselves, and he's been doing a lot of work around Whitehaven around the last 18 months. Was able to get some footage of Ike from the Southwood family, and they were fully involved in sort of the video and everything like that. And I think us at Whitehaven want to look at speaking to them and getting their thoughts on what the game means to them as a family. Try and bring it back to the sort of its roots, which I think it might have lost over the last few seasons of why Whitehaven and Workington always play each other in pre-season, apart from the fact they are 8 miles apart. But yeah, it was a fantastic video. If you haven't seen it, it's on the Whitehaven, our Workington social media pages, so you can go and check it out and see the announcement. But that's the end of pre-season. That's being played on Sunday the 19th of January, which is the week before the Challenge Cup starts. Next bit of news, and we'll hear if Paul Crarey sort of touches on this when we hear your interview with him later on, Dan. But following their link up with Salford, 3 Super League forwards expected to join the Raiders. That's the rumour being doing the rounds around South Cumbria this week. Anything further?
Yeah, there is 3 Super League forwards coming into the club, which I believe are going to be announced at some point of next week as well. That doesn't necessarily all mean they're all from Salford, hint. But there is a decent meeting going on as well, something Paul will touch on in his interview, with Paul Rowley coming up to really, really utilising the dual reg system rather than just take academy players, tag lag, to help the Super League club out. This has become a little bit bigger than that for Paul, for both Pauls, really. And I think it just goes to show that Cresta as a coach and these relationships he's built up with Super League coaches, a lot of coaches over the years, has really come to fruition. And I know a lot of fans have been talking about the smaller squad, something again that Paul picks up on, and the reason behind that as well when it comes to budget constraints and the fact that he is still filtering through some of the Furness Raiders players and using the dual reg and bringing in loan players as well. The loan players it's not just about filling up the squad, it's also managing the costs. So when they come in on loan, a lot of the finances and the wages are covered by their parent club, and Barrow have only got to pay the smaller fees from it. So it does it ticks a lot of boxes, really. And I think it's the way that most clubs are going now, to be honest. And I think that's just the way Championship rugby is at the moment. And it's the way to go. But yeah, there's also going to be a friendly announced as well with another Super League club that will make up the 3 fixtures for the Raiders going into that Challenge Cup game. So it's going to be an interesting one.
Wonder if we can take a guess who the Super League club might be. And that's
Again,
me not knowing anything. That is speculation, but I think I could take a wild guess.
You not knowing anything, Becca? That's not like you.
I know everything.
Did you
I tell
know
you what,
this
though,
was
I
coming?
don't
Go on.
know the. Sorry, Jordan. I don't know the forwards, but is it too much to hope that Brad Singleton might be making a comeback to Cumbria and play for Barrow? You never know.
I'm looking forward to watching Catalan come to Craven Park in the pre-season. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Catalan don't even move. I don't even think Catalan. They don't normally have a pre-season of it, is it? It's normally against like a select, like a Elite One select side. I don't even think they do an awful lot. It was always like Sheffield as well. Sheffield never played pre-season under Mark Aston, we're allowed to mention his name now. He's it's all sort of come out. We're allowed to mention his name again. They never. It's something they never sort of really done. It'd be interesting to see how they go this season now. Craig Lingard's just quickly you're moving away from Cumbria quickly. Craig Lingard's going to be in there. He's a cracking bloke. He's Craig, and he's as mad as a box of frogs. I think obviously. More myself and Dan will have had opportunities to speak to him in our work over the last few seasons, and I remember him being interviewed on Premier Sports a couple of years ago when they had that magnificent run to the League Championship playoff final, didn't they, against Leeds? They were 80 minutes away from Super League the year League got promoted, and he's Craig Lingard just getting interviewed there, no shoes on, no flip flops, no sliders, just there bare feet. No, fair play to you, mate. He's just one of them. So he seems like a really cracking bloke, does Craig. So I'm glad he's got another opportunity back in the Championship, obviously, as he didn't go the best at Castleford. Becca, you say you know everything. Did you know this was coming? The return of the King, not Ryan King, Jarad Stack. He's done his U-turn. Penny, it's something you've hinted at for weeks and weeks and weeks, and something the club.
It's something, and I told Paul I'm taking credit for it. I don't care what you say. I am having it.
Got Stacky back.
I'm telling you, we had a conversation on the Tuesday. We're seeing how he was getting on. I told him, you know what, Stacky, go and skip the sand dunes and get yourself back and get a proper send-off. Thursday, it got announced. Jarad Stack is returning. Thank Dan Payne, the saviour of Barra Raiders.
Are you funding him as well then?
I'm just going to go off the screen. Wait, 1 second.
I think after last season, after last season's exit, I didn't expect him to come back. And there was a lot of rumours that he was going to go to Whitehaven or working as a coach, which was a bit odd as well. But yeah, I thought he would, but to be fair, I didn't think he'd come back in a playing capacity. He's obviously had a few injuries, and I think, but he always puts his body on the line. But his body just you see him in a game, and he still plays outstanding, but he just looks knackered after a game now. Just not old or anything, but he just looks tired because he just puts that much into a game. He puts everything into it. So to be fair, I seen it, and I was like, yeah, I could see it, but I was a bit I'm not surprised, but yeah, good for him, good for him.
I think he needs it. I think he never had. It wasn't really a proper send off, was it? And there was always going to be that question: will he, won't he? Just because of the way it didn't really finish properly. And again, Paul has said he's going to come back in a different kind of capacity now. As much as he wants to play every week, Barrow have set themselves up to be in a position where they don't need to play him every week because of the squad that they've built. And I'm sure he'll get plenty of game time, but I'm also sure he's going to get plenty of rest, and he can fit it into his new, what should have been his retirement schedule, if you will. So I think it's also a fitting way, though, that he can finish out on better terms now. He can get his proper send-off, and he can really nip it in the bud. He'll be similar age to me soon, so and I know what it's like, to be an elite sportsman. How hard it gets. What are you laughing at?
Yeah, Jarad Stack vaping on the sidelines.
Yeah, because obviously we're not going to go too much into it, but he's had his issues off the field, Jarad, last season, didn't he, in terms of family, and we won't go too much into it in that. And you think that might have initially where the decision might have came from? Had it sort of come too soon, or was it sort of everything that he was dealing with at the time? And it seems now that he's been able to deal with everything that has been going on, and he's maybe now in a better place to have made that decision. And Dan has come to it. Yeah, he probably knows he's not going to be playing week in, week out, and it's probably best for his mind and his body that he's not going to be playing week in, week out, because as you mentioned, he's getting to an age where if you are going to play week in, week out, you might not end the season because, you start picking up these little knocks and niggles and such things like that. But the fact he's still going to be able to be around the squad, have that impact where Becca tried to get him into a Cumbrian 13 despite the fact he's not Cumbrian. That sort of impact. Yeah, it would have been a real shame for him not to go out on his terms. And I know it was sort of his terms by, he announced it, but then the Raiders were like, well, no, because you're not retiring. So it was one of them, he sort of, where I think we can all sort of probably between us three and everyone else will probably go, right, that this will be the final season. He can sort of lead up. He can, he can have a final derby. He can have a final cup tie. He can have a final home game. He can have a final game. Whatever it is for the Raiders next season, he'll be able to do these final goodbyes and make a full season of it and get the plaudits he deserves.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, Jord.
That's why I'm here, my friend. That's why I'm here. So we'll move on away from the news, and we've sort of already hinted at it. But earlier this week, you've finally done some pre-season work, Dan Payne. You've went and spoke to Crested and got his thoughts on the upcoming 2025 season.
Yeah. What did you mean? Finally got some work. Listen, I'm a busy man. All right. Yeah, it was nice to go and catch up with Paul. We just do it now and again. Have a brew, a bit of a chin wag. Sometimes you get lost in your way. We're sat talking for an hour, and it's like, right, maybe we should start recording something now. Then, should we, Paul? So yeah, we did a little bit of that. Spoke to Paul this week, and this is what Paul had to say.
So me with Paul Crarey. Paul, we're going to take a look now into the season coming up. You're currently still going through your pre-season, a few more weeks of that before the friendlies. How's it all been going in this horrible torrential weather on the sand dunes?
Well, it's been difficult. We've had 2 sand dune sessions, none of them like that, but it gives us somewhere to train. The pitch has more or less been unplayable. Everlast have been great. We've had a good session in there. We've been boxing with Jeff Moses, who's great with them. Did a real good contact session with them, which was different to what we'd done before, and we've had to improvise really. We had a field session the other week and the other day actually, and we just come off after 40 minutes. We put some work in, but it was so bad, flooding. The pitch was flooding, and it was just going to rip it up. And Simon's done a fantastic job of the pitch, so we just come off, did our work, and come off. So it's been difficult and different, but we've managed to get in what we need to get in. And to be fair, the lads have trained really well. The new boys that have come in and have done great, and the players that we had last year have just kicked on a little bit, and they're more settled and they know what we're doing and they get straight into it. We're not teaching them much, we're just running through past systems.
Obviously, I imagine at this stage of the season, your squad is all set, signed, sealed, delivered, ready to go now for pre-season. A few fresh faces in there that you've signed over the last few months, but also there's a few Furnace Raiders lads now in there as well. Tell us a little bit about them that you brought into the team.
Well, Dan's been with us before, Dan Nyott. He played for Great Britain. So Dan's back in with us again. Seth Woodend, who's a real prospect, centre, athlete, very mature for his age. And he has Super League interest, but we've got his sights on him. He's got a job in the yard, and he'll do real well, give him time. Trent Ruddy, again, he's got a big family background. Wayne was a very good player, played at Millham, very tough. And Oliver Holmes, who works real hard. And so them 4 were brought in this year with a view to signing maybe one come the back end of pre-season with the help of the Super Lotto, which is set up for the development fund, and it donates money for the players that we do sign from that, which is a lifeline, and we thank the people that do pay into that, because it helps us with our budget when we're signing these young players that we've got to develop over a period of time. And we've signed some great players that are coming through, and probably won't see the best of them for a couple of years, but they're there in the background and the future of the club.
Yeah, it's one thing you've proud yourself on over the last few years is bringing up these youngsters and developing them into. I mean, championship level rugby is a big step up, so naturally it takes a few years for them to go through. But do you think we're going to see a few of these lads in the pre-season setup?
Yeah, definitely. We've done that in the past, and we'll do it this time. It gives them a taste of what they need. We bring them in early for pre-season. I mean, I remember Luke Cresswell, he trained for a year with us before he signed. Charlie probably 2 years before he signed, and we make sure it's right for them as well as us, because sometimes in the past you sign young players and it's not for them, and you find out, once they've signed contracts and they don't want to be there. So it's a slowly catch the monkey deal for us. We give them time to settle. We bring them in with the first team. The first team lads embrace them, and we've signed some great kids and some great players that are doing well in the first team now. And I think that's the only way the club will survive, really. Because in the past the most successful Barra teams are the ones, with the local players in, and with the scattering of players that we bring down the road, and our budget constraints allow for that we've got to do that, or else we won't survive. And if it's good enough, it's good enough, and it's not, we can't do anything else about it.
There was a statement released by the club this week, obviously, about the playing squad moving forward into this season. The big news, obviously, was that for most years, club captain Jarad Stack is making his return from his apparent retirement. It's not retiring just yet. How big is that for you and for the team and for the club?
It's massive, really. He's a great player, Jarad. He come in my early days when he phoned me, and there was money troubles at work, and he just said, he lives at Askham, and I've known him for a long time, and he said, I want to come and play at Barrow. So he made that possible, and he's been an absolute rock, probably for me and the club. He's one of the, probably one of the greats of Barrow Rugby League, really. He truly is. We speak about greats loosely, but he's a great player. Up there with the best players I've coached that have played Super League or anything, and even the Super League coaches say, some of the best players in the Championship are the 36, 37-year-olds, and he's one of them. So for him to come back, a lot going on in his life, Jarad, with his mum passing away and other stuff, and we left him for a while, and we didn't think he'd come back, and then he contacted me and saying he had a little bit of interest to come back, and he's probably waiting to the Sandhills to finish before he come in. But his body needs a rest. He played absolutely busted for me last year when we needed him to play in the games we needed to play to survive, and he's done that time after time. This year, hopefully, with the squad and the back rows we brought in with Ellis and Kingy and Greeny, and that we can rest him up a little bit because he played really busted. So it's a case of bringing him in as a squad member. I know he wants to play every week, but that probably won't happen. And with a lot of them, we don't want them to play busted because we lose our players, and it affects us down the track. So hopefully we're not going to do that. I know there's a bit of controversy in saying we haven't got enough players, but I look at Oldham's squad, 32 players, massive budget, and Sean Long's got to keep them all happy, and he'll probably be farming them out after 3 or 4 weeks, and so we've got a squad of 23. With Jarad, it'd be 24. We've got 3 probably Super League kids coming in on loan for the season that we've had for we've had in for last year, and we've got a great relationship with Paul Crarey. I'm going to meet him this month, sorry, back end of the month, and we're going to sit down with him and Gaff and go through the players that he wants to come out on loan, and there's some big names in there that he's thrown about already that if they're not playing, he wants them playing, and they're established Super League players. So, it's exciting. I trust Paul with my life. I've known him for a long time when I went to Lee and did some work with him, and we became good friends, and he's real honest, and he is honest, and you probably don't get that a lot in any sport, really, professional sport, but he'll go that extra mile, and he always has done. Every time I've needed players, last year he needed a hooker going to Swinton, and he gave us Amir Burrow, who was outstanding, and we won that game away. Now Amir signed for Hull. So, if we can get the calibre of people like that, and some massive middles, and that, with the squad, and we're healthy, we'll be all right. And we're happy with the squad of 24. We don't want any more because it's so difficult to manage. And after week 1, when you put that sheet up, everybody's knocking on my door down saying, can you get me out? I don't want to play. I want to go and move and play somewhere else. And then you get injuries and try and get them back, and it becomes an impossible situation. So, we're happy with where it's gone. We've got a budget that we've got to stick to because we haven't got a mega rich owner. Steve's doing his absolute best to give us a budget. The Blue and White Knights have been absolutely unbelievable, signing Ryan King for us, and Aaron Smith, and paying the part of Tom Walker's transfer fee. So, they're great, and they're ongoing with us, and I keep in touch with them all the time, and they're asking us what we can do to help us push on even further, and hopefully at the end of the pre-season we'll sign maybe one of the academy boys on who's in the sights, and we'll push on from there. And whatever happens, it's exciting times at Barrow Rugby League. You can be at the top and you're expected to win, but we're so unpredictable, us, and when you watch us, it's sometimes great watching your side, overachieve, and that's what we've got to do to stay in the Championship this year, I believe. I believe we've got a bottom 3, bottom 4 budget, looking at the other teams, but I reckon as a group that we can overachieve, and I think we've done that over the last few years to survive, and survival is a massive achievement for the likes of Barrow and and the Swintons and the Whitehavens and stuff, but they fell off the cliff now, and we haven't, and we're still there, and we're coming out of the blocks this year.
One thing you touched on there was obviously you say you got this meeting with Paul Crarey, and I know in the past we've had conversations about the dual reg and the ups and downs of it. I think you're really taking the positive side of a dual reg system and a dual reg that's been put in place by setting up these meetings. And it's not just about the Super League academies and helping them excel. It's also about potential first team players from Super League coming to you to help them excel and keep them fit as well. So definitely, I'd say, utilising the dual reg to its full potential now with Salford.
Yeah, because, Paul's a good friend and he wants his top stars playing. He doesn't want them sat on the sidelines. There's no way. If there is reserves that were regular, probably there wouldn't be no dual reg system, but it's sporadic, the reserve system. And he just wants the players playing. He knows me inside out. I know him inside out. So he knows what I'm about in terms of developing players for him. We did that with Jamie Pye. Jamie Pye come with us last year. Ended up making a first team appearance. John Fieldhouse phoned me and said that he'd probably play first team the year after, but he actually did it, before 12 months before he was supposed to. So, if you look at Salford's team, quite a lot of them players have been with us in the past, and they've gone on to play from Championship and Championship 1 Super League rugby. So we pride ourselves, as a club, as a coaching group, on progressing players and getting the best out of the players. You only have to look at our local players that are competing in the Championship. Look at the awards. Luke Cresswell, who played for Barrow Island, we brought him in for 12 months, and he got a bad injury, played great, got a bad injury and come back, and he's absolutely killed it last year and took all the awards off all the lads that have played Super League and been in the Championship for a long time. So, and he's only been coached by us really in his amateur club at Barrow Island. So we're happy the way things are going at the club. There's no other way to do it, Dan. We haven't got the money to do it. I wouldn't like to do it any other way really and buy myself a team. I like working hard and bearing the fruits of all the hard work that's put in by everybody at the club.
So one eye on these upcoming pre-season fixtures, Paul. Obviously, we've got a couple of Cumbrian derbies and another potential third friendly, I believe. Yeah,
we've got Whitehaven, I think, on the first weekend. I think the 5th of January, the first game, and then the work it in the week after. And then I think we've got a potential Super League club coming to Craven Park, on the week before we play the Challenge Cup round. We're looking forward to them all. We're looking forward to playing Whitehaven first. There's a lot of the kids that have come through our academy system that have gone to work in Whitehaven, so it just shows the work in terms of development that we've done to see these kids running out. The ones that have gone up there, Blink on that is. They've said that they would like to play for Barra, if it all goes well for them at these other clubs, and so we'll be monitoring them because they want to come home at some point. So if they can develop them for us a little bit, because we've developed them for them, and then we can pick them up again if they bear fruit, and if they don't, they'll get a good education in Championship 1 and get that experience they need whether they go back to the amateur clubs or carry on in professional rugby. So it's great to see that the lads that we have progressed through our Jets programme and our Furnace Raiders, are getting the opportunity to play professional rugby league.
And looking at the upcoming squads for these games, I know it's hard to set in stone your preferred 13, but you've got a lot of players that you can shuffle around and play in different positions, and especially now with Jarad coming back as well. Are you going to try and test different methods out in these pre-season friendlies, or do you pretty much know now where you're going to set your players up going into the 2025 season?
Well, I've got a couple of niggles. I think Tom Walker, he's got an ankle problem at the moment that needs an injection that keeps him out for 2 weeks. He doesn't have that till the 8th of January. So whether he plays in the last friendly, we've got Ryan Johnson that's got a hernia problem that, he might need an op yet. We don't know. He's training at the moment, but if he has a reoccurrence of what happened last year, he needs to go in straight away and he'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks. So we have got some niggles that we maybe rest up in the friendlies and don't risk them. We will be being selective really if we've got a full complement of players that we can rest the players in early games and just play them when we need to play them. If players are out through lack of form and things like that. So, it's going to be difficult this year managing the team. Like I say, we've got the opportunity with dual reg to bring in some quality players with Paul at Salford. We've got 3 loan players coming in from Super League clubs that have been great for us in the past. So, and with Jarad Stack coming back as well, you know, we have a pretty healthy squad. And like I say, we're a year on. Ramon's a year on with us, who was outstanding last year and got a bad injury. Costello, he done his PCL. He's probably a week away from contact, so he'll be all right in the friendlies. We'll give him a good run in them to get him up to speed for the games. And for us, it won't be about winning and losing the friendlies. It'll be about managing the side and getting the boys ready for that, you know, the Challenge Cup game against Crossfields or Maryport, whoever it is, and getting ready for that first game against Hunslet, because, you know, that's going to be fiery. We played them in the friendly last year and they were real good. And when they hit the playoffs last year and they went to Keighley, I fancied them to beat Keighley. And then when they played Swinton, I told Steve Neal, I said, I think Hunslet will win the game. Just the way they set the team up. I like Dean Muir. He's a great lad, a good coach, and they play with a lot of passion and they play for him. And they've got a little bit more money. They've brought some Australians in. They've gone and got some players from Huddersfield and the dual reg as well. So, you know, we've got to be ready for Hunslet when they come, because, you know, we've got a dream start at home in the Championship, which we haven't had for a long time. And we need to get that win for the home fans, and then off we go to Halifax. But it's going to be difficult this year with Oldham in, because there is no whipping boys like Dewsbury were. But having said that, Dewsbury come up undefeated out of Championship 1 and won 2 games. That's how difficult the Championship is. So we've got to be ready psychologically. And the players were brought in, you know, people are saying, oh, we're not impressed with the signings, but these are good players. And like any side at the bottom of the Championship, they've got some good quality players like we have. And we pick the best ones to play for us, because that's what we can afford. And we've got to do that. There is no sugar daddy here. We just got to work hard with what we've got. And what we've got is a group of dedicated players that are conscientious. And like, I had a good feeling when we come in 1 or 2 weeks in that we've got a good group of players to work with.
We looked at the fixture list when they came out, and you always scan it and you try and see where you're going to get the big points from and that. Every year we do this, and every year it looks like it's going to be a tougher and tougher challenge. Now, I know I'm never going to get a straight answer out of you here, but where do you think, let's say best case scenario, you don't have any major injuries going throughout the season, you keep the bulk of your squad together, where would you like to see, or where do you think Barrow can finish in the league this year?
It's very difficult, Dan. I know you can't pin me down, but like I say, we've got a bottom 3 budget, bottom 4 budget maybe, and we've got to overachieve. But we did that last year, beating Featherstone, beat Sheffield. You know, we should have beat Halifax, and we drew with Bradford, who finished 3rd, and we come back from, and we're capable at Barrow Rugby League with the fans behind us and the players we've got. What we bought this year is players that can score tries. I don't think we got enough tries last year when we're in them close games to get away from teams. And this year with Ryan King, you know, probably guaranteed 9 or 10 tries. Curtis Tier tries. Sir Ellis Robson, I think 18 and 19 tries. Any level's fantastic for a back rower. And he's come in with a passion and with a purpose. I really like Ellis. He's come in. He's a great lad to work with, and you know, he can play centre as well as back rower. And we did some contact the other night, and he was really impressive. So, you know, and Bish there is like a sponge, you know, wanting to know this, wanting to know that after training, coming to me and saying, what about this, what about that? And, you know, I like players that challenge themselves. There's a little saying that if you're comfortable, you're not progressing. And so I like it when players are a little bit uncomfortable, and they get that with me. They don't, you know, with me, they're on the edge all the time. They don't know how I am, and we keep them that way. And I think that's why we've survived in the Championship. And, you know, we're probably the longest we've ever been in the Championship on Block 4, I think, for 4 or 5 years. And we keep doing it every year. But the challenge this year is a lot more difficult than it has been for a number of years. So we've got to be ready for that, physically and psychologically. We've got to be ready. And to answer your question, I don't really know. As long as we're not, it might be the Super H next year. So as long as I'm still in the Championship when you're interviewing me next year, Dan, I'll be happy.
So, thoughts and feelings of Paul Crarey. Dan, what do you take from that one?
I think there's a lot of things there we would like to have got answers from, but they will come out in due course. And I always press him for that that one question every year. Where do you think you're going to finish? And of course, you get that 7-minute Paul Crarey answer without actually getting an answer.
Knock back with a
Yeah.
straight bat. Knock back straight away with a straight bat. And I mean, obviously, there was a lot of talking points in there. Obviously, in terms of the relationship with Salford and the new players coming into the squad, but also, what he's expecting. Somehow he's also managed to get onto Whitehaven and work it in that conversation there as well. But obviously, he's going to be keeping a keen eye because he mentioned there's a lot of players, and Becca hinted to it earlier on that there's a lot of players there that have come through that Jets programme and the Furnace Raiders programme, hasn't there? So, there's plenty in there that he'll be keeping an eye on, maybe looking to bring back in the future. But it was a typical Paul Crarey interview. You get. And this is nothing against Cresta, but you get a lot of words. Was there a lot of substance to it? Was there a lot of it? No, probably not. But he tells you what he wants to know, doesn't he? Does Cresta?
He loves throwing out that rod, doesn't he? Looking for a bite off his Cumbrian neighbours. And you've niggled. You niggled out of there, Jordan. I've seen that. But yeah, he's a great guy, and I do hope it is going to be a successful season. And like you said, we say it every year. It's going to be a tough one. We look at the fixtures, you wonder where the points are going to come from. But we say that season upon season. This championship campaign, it's never going to be easy, even for the guys. I mean, you get the Wakefields, you know what I mean. You get the Lees of the past, but I think this year. I mean, I know Toulouse naturally are probably going to go in as the favourites. I don't know what sort of squad London are going to put together, but I don't think Toulouse are going to rip it apart like teams at the top have in previous years. And I don't know. It's tricky. Sheffield, who have done well for years, how are they going to go without Ashton? Look at Doncaster. Was that just their promotion season high? Is that going to last? I don't know. We're going to have to do a podcast about this championship season, but we'll do it when you're off, Jordan.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
Don't.
It's not as good without Andy here, so I thought I better get some sort of
yeah. You're going to have to get some sort of jab in because otherwise I'd have been left alone this week with Andy not being here. But I mean, one thing you mentioned there was obviously about he's starting 13, looking forward to next season. How much of that do you think he's got nailed down? I mean, I don't think there's been any sort of squad numbers released, has there yet? So that normally gives you some sort of indication. But there's a lot of new faces in at the Raiders, and there's some real competition for the places. I mean, I'm thinking of just the two you've signed from Whitehaven, Curtis and Kingy. There hasn't been any more, has there? Yeah. So I'm thinking of just just Curtis and King. I'm just thinking, obviously, they're not making the trip down the coast road 3 to 4 times a week to not be playing, so they'll be looking to nail down some places, won't they? So how many do you think if any, he's got nailed down?
You know what? He'll always keep his cards close to his chest, Paul, won't he? And I think not just from a fans and an opposition perspective, but for the players as well. He doesn't want even the players to know if they're going to be playing. He makes you earn it. He doesn't care how big you are as a name. You know what I mean? If the likes of Ryan King aren't performing, he will drop you. It's as simple as that. And I think as long as the players, we've had some major injuries over the last few years. I know a lot of clubs have, and I'm not trying to use it as an excuse, but it would be interesting to see if nothing major went this season, how good this team could go on. And even I don't know. And even talking, I don't think he never gave me a true answer. I don't think he knows what players can play in said positions throughout the season yet, because there's so many. Like he talks about King, there's 3 or 4 different spots he could do and play well at. You know what I mean? And he's just one of many that can do that. Where does Broadbent fit into this team? It's a discussion that we've had, isn't it, in the past? And it's not a bad headache to have. And I think it'll be really interesting to see in the pre-season how they get on, because he's going to play a lot of these academy lads as well in the pre-season fixtures, I assume, going into that Challenge Cup game as well. So it's interesting. I mean, what are your thoughts, Becca? What do you think they're going to? I mean, can you put a nail down 13 on yet?
I was just going to say, well, obviously you know Cresta a lot better than we kind of do, but do you think he's one of them people that is going to wait till he's watched them in the friendlies? Because, like you said, there's a lot of people coming in and a lot of people changing. And normally you have your numbers by now. I mean, I've seen, I think most clubs have started to announce the teams and numbers and where they're going to be. So as a player, like from a player perspective, can he really leave it that long, like till January, to tell the players what numbers are going to be? Because I mean, as a player, would you not be miffed at that? If you, I know from like the women's perspective, their season doesn't start until really late. So if they didn't find out till February, that would be okay. But the men's season starts quite early into the year now with the Challenge Cup and everything. So they'll obviously be wanting to know what they are, probably before the new year. So it's more can he leave it that long? And really, as a fan, I couldn't nail down a 13 because there's so many changes. I mean, obviously Ellis leaving, that's a gap that needs to be filled, and there's people to fill that gap. But it's just what are you going to do?
Interestingly, on them squad numbers as well, I don't know if you've noticed in the past. I know it's easy to look at the team sheet and when the numbers get released and look at the 1 to 13. Paul will always throw a curveball in there. You'll always see a player that you wouldn't expect to have a 1 to 13 number have one of them numbers. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to start every week. Like you might see Finn McMillan come in with a number 7 on his shirt and think, how's that happening? I'm just using an example, but it turns out he's just is one for the future. I think, was it Charlie? Did Charlie Emsley get a starting number a few years back? And
Didn't Rio get number 3?
Rio's another one.
Yeah, I was going to say Rio was 3 or 4, wasn't he? Yeah, I remember that coming down for the Toulouse game.
Come in as well. Yeah, he'd just come in, so that that's not me knocking his skill or anything.
No.
But it was a bit of a surprise because he was like a brand new player. So yeah, he got like a starting shirt, and that was a bit. Oh my god!
You've got the superstition side of it as well. A lot of players like to stick with the same number, don't they? Players numbers that they've had since they were kids and all that. So I don't take too much notice in the numbers really. But if you see Ryan King with number 1 on his shirt, is he going to play at fullback? Do you know what? Probably, knowing Ryan
Potentially,
King.
yeah, he probably could. He's played just about everywhere else as King, so he may well do. So obviously that was the Paul Crarey interview, and we'll no doubt catch up with all 3 of our coaches over the coming weeks of pre-season before we get into them pre-season fixtures.
I'm
3, yeah, but right, 3 in terms of the men's pre-season because the women's season starts later on, Becca. So
I started this last week.
No, I meant in terms. But when's the ladies going to play? They aren't going to play. It's like February. You've just mentioned it.
He's digging a hole. He's digging a hole.
Honest to God.
I'm here for the women.
I know you are. Right, so I'll rephrase that. All 3 of the men's coaches. There we go. I'll rephrase that for yourself. But in terms of, because obviously, it's less than 4 weeks away now to them first fixtures for the men's sides. So in terms of pre-season, so yeah, no doubt we'll catch up with them all again before that. Probably even before Christmas, or definitely between Christmas and New Year. Move on to something we've been discussing now, and you've mentioned it a little bit earlier on, Dan. The Cumbria Tri-Series. And I know it's something that a few people at Whitehaven have previously mentioned in terms of Carl Forster was a huge fan of what we've got. Really wanted to get off the ground and never really did. Now, you mentioned there a sort of a Cumbria Tri-Series, but a Cumbria Cup. We all play each other in pre-season anyways. Why not nail something down, get proper something in there? It may involve every now and again Barrow having to move out of Barrow to sort of do these fixtures, which I know it would come as a massive shock. But if you can get something nailed down, something earlier on, why couldn't all 3, and I know Becca's got something she wants to add this in terms as well, as in maybe more than 3, but at least all 3 Cumbrian sides, why don't you get a proper Cumbrian Cup going, market it, get it nailed down early doors, everyone knows it's happening, and, play for a Cumbria Cup? Becca, I'll let you discuss that.
Do you know what, Becca, you start with this one.
Yeah, because my point is valid, but then also because of the difference in the teams, I said what I'd like is a Cumbrian Cup, but I think it'd be better than just having Whitehaven, Workington and Barrow. I think it should start at the lower local levels, but kind of play it like Challenge Cup knockout sort of way. So then like Barrow and Whitehaven and Workington don't come into it into like a later period, and the kind of local teams have that knockout side. So, you can... I'm sorry, to be honest, I can't lie. I don't know the levels at local. I couldn't name all the leagues, but obviously you've got your NCL leagues and levels, so maybe they might be like the second games, and then you've got your real local leagues first. So Yeah, something like that, and then maybe like I say that sort of knockout stage, and then bring Barrow and Whitehaven and Workington into it. Then have your quarterfinals and your semi-finals, and your ultimate final. But I think it'd be good to get a lot of them involved because, like you say, I agree with it. But we already do have the friendlies, so I think clubs could turn around and go, well, why change it? We've already got the friendlies, so what's the point? That works. Why should we have a cup just to say it? So if maybe they got the local sides involved and it has to be played at their club, or at least they'll get some games at their club, and that's kind of helps them for pre-season friendlies as well, because they'll struggle with getting pre-season friendlies trying to get people local. So then they're guaranteed a Cumbrian pre-season friendly, and it'll be in that cup as well. So I'd like it at a bit of a lower level, but like you say, the teams already play each other anyway. So in my mind, it's like, well, that's already going to happen. So let's make it a bit juicier.
Any?
Yeah, I don't really want to argue with that. My initial thoughts on the Cumbrian Cup, like, I get it, and from a fan's perspective, I get it as well. We love it. We love a good derby day. It's in terms of the level where they're at. I think without trying to sound too obnoxious, Barrow would find it a cakewalk if it happened this season. You know what I mean? There's two teams underneath them in Working and Whitehaven that are rebuilding almost completely from scratch, so there would be no equality. So maybe if there was some sort of ruling where they had to play players maybe under a certain age, almost like a reserve grade, where you could have X amount of players over the age of 25 or whatever, just to give the youngsters a bit of a run out, maybe that might make it a little bit fairer. I'm not too sure. I don't know how. I mean, it's year on year. I mean, how often do you see the three clubs performing in the same league at the same time? That's when probably it will be more even, but it's not very often you see that, is it? With the way we go up and down all the time. So that's my only beef with that. I get what Becca's just said there briefly about bringing in some of the smaller sides into it, but again, then you've got the arguments of, well, we're NCL, we're better than you. Well, you're North West Counties, you know what I mean? And it might start a bit of bickering like that. And I think for that reason, I don't think it would actually ever happen, unfortunately. So, yeah, there's a few course of arguments and opinions with it. But as much as I'd like to see it, I just don't know how you'd make it fair.
In terms of a Cumbria Cup, I'd be quite happy having it all sort of just the three professional sides, or I'd love an idea of fetching an NCL side into it, or a Northwest County side, or a Carla side, or just for that. I'd love the idea. Whether that would ever get off the ground, I'm not too sure. I just think the seasons start at a different time compared to your NCLs and your Carlas and your Northwests and your such things like that, compared to say the professional. I don't think it would ever really marry up. But I'd love to see a Cumbria Cup. And like you say, yeah, it might not be a massively different from what we see now, because, we all play each other anyways. Whitehaven and Workington play each other year on year. Barrow and Workington's played each other an awful lot in the last sort of few seasons, pre-season. So it might not be, but I just feel like if you can give it a slightly competitive element. I mean, we've seen it, the old sort of Northern Rail Cup was a Cumbria Cup for a long time, wasn't it, in terms of the group stages? And sort of Newcastle jumped in as well, when it was a 4-team sort of group stage. And from what I remember, when that sort of round robin stage came in, that was when Whitehaven really at the fore. But I remember back in 2005, into the pre-season of 2005, Whitehaven obviously had only just missed out on Super League. That defeat against Lee in the what was then the National League 1 grand final, and then went to Workington, who were in the National League 2, modern day equivalent to League 1 now, and went and lost the first game after in 2005. And this was then Whitehaven's more successful year. So I think, you could see potential shocks like that. And I think obviously there was some competitive games, and while these wouldn't be competitive, can you try and get a more competitive feel to it? And like I say, we all play each other anyways, but is there something there? Could you try and get local businesses on board, sponsorship? Could there be a bit of a financial element which would give it a bit of a reward? We've seen how Carla up here has got the Cumberland Cup. Obviously down Barrow way, you've got the Barton Townley. So if there can be that competitive element to it of sponsorship potential, prize money on board, I think that's maybe where you'd get more buy-in. I think there'd have to be a competitive, a financial element in it. I think if Barrow were to go away from the model of what they do at the moment in terms of all of their friendlies at home, and you can't knock Barrow for doing that. I know a lot of Whitehaven and Workington fans, Barrow never travel, Barrow never travel. Well, yeah, could Barrow get the better 3 gates out of all 3 sides? So that's why Barrow don't travel, and it's why Whitehaven and Workington will very happily travel down that course road year in, year out. So I think there would have to be a financial element if Barrow were to move away from the model that they do. But if you can get something, if the heads of all 3 clubs can get themselves together and get something planned, and I know there's a lot more going on in rugby league, but if you can try and get something element and try and get, I don't know, some of the dockyards sponsoring something or something nuclear sponsoring something, get a financial element in there, I think that may, where, Crestis side may travel up the coast road every now and again. I just feel like if you are going to get something off the ground, it would have to have that sort of element in it. You think, Dan, Becca?
Well, if there's only 3 teams, though, what if Barrow beat Whitehaven, Whitehaven beat Workington, Workington beat Barrow?
So it would be a sort of a round robin. So it'd be like a group stage. So you'd play each other once, or then you could then maybe have a final after that, or like I say, there's a lot of work to be done on it. But I mean, it's similar to probably how the 1895 Cup worked. There's always going to be, even if it's a points difference or something like that. So, or with something we spoke about a couple of weeks ago in terms of bonus points for tries. If you score so many tries, you then get a bonus point. So then players, they are going to, like I said, they could bring that competitive element into it. And I think it's just an idea of trying to drum up more interest in sort of pre-season, giving it that competitive element. I'm not saying we need to go against 17-17, your best 17 going against your best 17, but I feel like if you're going to give teams a financial reward, if you can potentially get some local businesses on board, give them some airtime and such things like that, that there could be something there.
Something else, a bit of a twist on it, do it as a nines. Do it as a little nines competition. We used to have, I remember going down to the Cumbrian Nines with my dad and watching that, and, I absolutely loved it. It was brilliant, getting to see players and stuff, and, it's not as long games. It kind of keeps interesting, and, it's a bit of an off-season kind of pre-season, isn't it? So, yeah, maybe even took it into like a nines comp.
So then could you host a nines at, say, each club? So then that's maybe when you're able to get, your NCL clubs involved, your Carla clubs, your Badon District, for that's maybe when they could get involved, so you could host one at Whitehaven and have Kells, Hensingham, Wafbrow, Wegenham, and Whitehaven. Could you then get Workington, Seaton, some of things like that? Could you go down? Could you have a Barrow then hosting, the likes of Highpool and and Barrow Island and your Millams and such things like that. So that potentially. But like I said, there's a lot of scope for it. I feel like it would have to get all 3 professional clubs together first to put something forward, and then put a proposal through to the NCL, the Carla, the Barrow and District sides. But I feel that definitely could, and yet again that could get the sponsorship involved, because it could be held over a few weekends. Could it be held over the one weekend, or a couple of weekends there at least, because you're not wanting to knacker players out in pre-season? But could you do a Barrow, one at Barrow, one at Whitehaven, one at Workington, or could it alternate year on year, or whatever it be? There's a lot of scope there, isn't there?
There is. I do like that idea. The nines idea. Be good.
So Steve Neal, and whoever's in charge of Devon and Workington these days, but obviously Stevie's the main man at the Raiders, but the likes of Graham Pears at Workington and Gary Murdoch, I know, as the director of rugby, and the likes of Amanda and Gary and Barry at Whitehaven, all get yourselves in a room. Cumbria Cup. Now, I know people I've spoken to, and I'm not going to mention them, people I might have mentioned there, are quite up for the idea of a Cumbria Cup. So, we never know, it might be something we see in the future.
Listen, we had an episode, we talked about the IMG, and we talked about, saving rugby. What happened a week later on the social media? Oh, they're bringing the captain's call. See, people listen. It all started here. Don't forget that. When the Cumbrian Cup Nines happens, right? Don't forget when we had a conversation about it.
Well, let's clip this up. So, moving on. Trivia. Have you got a question? Have you got one? Have you got one to hand? You're not taking a paddy this week because we've mentioned trivia, are you?
I have a question. Before I go to last week's answer, Jordan, you got it, so I'm going to give you the pleasure.
Well, you're going to read the question out first.
Oh, wait there.
Come
I had
on.
this week's ready. Right, born in 1972 in West Cumbria, which player played for all 4 Cumbrian clubs? That includes Carlisle. Also had spells at Lee, Bradford, Swinton, Salford, Halifax, Widnes, and Blackpool in a pro career lasting over 16 seasons. Jordan got it first.
Simon Knox.
Simon Knox. I won't lie, I don't know who he is.
Your knowledge outside of Barrow is shocking.
Come on, what sort of year was Simon Knox?
Well, you're talking 90s, very early noughties. If he's playing for Blackpool, you're still knocking around 2003 to 6-ish. So, I mean, I only started going to Whitehaven games in 2003. Doesn't mean I don't, does mean I know stuff pre-2000s, Dan. That sort of thing with that. So, yeah, and like I say, you're a little bit older than me, so you should remember Simon Knox.
Well, I don't. All right, I don't. So this week's trivia, right? Which, if it wasn't until an hour before we went on air, would have had a wrong answer. But Steve Andrews luckily had a word with the main man and got the correct answer, which he was unaware of. Paul Crarey will be forever associated with Barrow. Which other professional clubs, that's plural, did he play for, and which other pro team did he coach? There you go. Because I don't think that many will know. I know some will, but I think a lot of the people do associate Paul with Barrow through and through. So that'll be an interesting one to see what sort of answers we get for that.
Paul Crarey played rugby.
I know part 2 of that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anymore. I know part 2. I might struggle with part 1 of that.
I actually think I know some of that. So,
well, I'll give you a hint. The answer got changed tonight because he went on loan and played 2 games somewhere.
So Paul Crarey don't even know where Paul Crarey played.
No. Paul Crarey gave. So this question came from Steve Andrews, as per the club historian, and he never knew about the loan appearances. So Paul Crarey corrected him tonight on their call, where Steve then rang me to say, "Damn, you need to change that question." I was like, right, okay. So one last time before we shoot off, Paul Crarey will be forever associated with Barrow, but which other professional clubs did he play for, and which other pro team did he coach? That's this week's trivia. And I've got 20 seconds left.
All right, well, before you've got to shoot off, thank you very much, guys and girls. That is this week's trivia question. Thank you very much to Dan, and thank you very much to Becca as well. Once more, Odd Shaped Balls podcast. A quick run through the socials. So you can join us on Facebook, Odd Shaped Balls, on Twitter at OSBallsRL, TikTok, which, Becca, you do need to change, odd.shaped.balls, and you're neglecting that as well, so you need to start getting some more stuff on there as well. osbpod.podbean.com for obviously where we are, and then is it osbpod@hotmail.com if you want to drop us an email over there as well. And last but not least, certainly not least in Andy's eyes, SpeakPipe, which you'll also find on the website. So if you do want to get involved, you've got any sort of comments about what we're discussing, what would be your idea for the Cumbria Cup, you can send us a voice clip of up to 90 seconds and we can sort of get your thoughts and views on that. But we definitely want to hear from yourselves, especially more heading into the season as well. Want to hear yourselves. So it's thank you very much to Dan, thank you very much to Becca, and I've been Jordan Weir, and this has been episode 12 of the Odd Shaped Balls podcast.